Collateral Banter episode 80 here with Danny T. Danny T.
Maxing out his channel a bit. Hey.
I like maxing out my channel. Is it too much gain? You need to reduce the gain.
You know, it's working in the radio station now. You've got that extra radio
gain
part of the voice now.
Yes, I do.
Plus 5 dB.
You know me. You know me. I am here all about Collateral Banter. I am your host.
You are.
I am the host of Collateral Banter. We are a podcast about whatever I want it to be. No, I'm just kidding. It's current events and politics and authoritarianism and democracy and
aliens
in America. And of course, you've probably heard here, we got Mastro back on the show of Collateral Banter. Mastro.
The third time.
The third time. Yep. Third's a charm, it Mastro. Is. So today we are recording on November 21st.
Yeah.
And here's what I wanted to know from you.
Okay.
When is the alien invasion going to happen?
Well, here's what I know.
What do you know?
Documentary that I wanted to tell you about was basically the whole premise was that all of the things that people have claimed seeing, so like, you know, the whole Phoenix Lights thing, and many of the UFO reporting that's been done, it's actually been aircraft that have been reverse engineered and then rebuilt by our government. And that they actually have a secret like Air Force that flies these things.
Okay.
That and that's kind of what's going on.
Is
and
that
then
using alien
technology? The claiming of people being abducted is actually a mind experiment that, you know, these people are being drugged with aerosol or whatever, and then brought on these spacecraft, and then, you know, they get flashed images and they hallucinate and you know, whatever. They think they've been abducted by aliens.
But they're really tripping on LSD.
They're just tripping out, and it's actually the government that's doing this whole thing. And ultimately what this is leading up to is a false flag attack.
I love false flags.
On the Earth.
Oh, really?
By what will be claimed to have been aliens.
Okay.
But in fact, it will be our own government or a unification of like governments.
I like this.
That are going to attack the Earth.
Okay.
But
pretend to be aliens.
But because they're using these alien aircraft or what we think are UFOs.
Yes.
It's going to seem like it was people from another planet, which will then, you know,
unite the Earth.
Yes, but it also ensure that the military-industrial complex stays intact.
Yes,
because then now we have to defend ourselves against the aliens.
Of course,
right? And we've already got the Space Force.
Sure.
Now, I don't think the Space Force is going to take me, but I've already looked
disagree.
Online for the application. I'm trying to apply as we speak. I feel I don't know what the age cutoff is. I think I probably am past.
I'm going to talk to the Donald and see what he can do for you at the Space Force.
You're going to talk to him.
I can talk to him.
You're going to talk to Donald.
Listen, he's a big fan of Collateral Banter. I don't know if you know that.
I'm sure he
fan.
is.
He loves me talking about authoritarianism. He loves me.
Yeah.
You know, look, there are a couple leftists that Donald loves. Yeah. You know, and he's a lover. He's a lover.
He really is. Deep down inside, the guy's got the heart of a whale.
Huge heart. Huge heart. You know, he just wants to deport a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, he's a stable genius.
Yes.
Yes.
Extremely
stable genius. Yeah. Yes.
That's right.
Of course.
Probably the smartest.
I mean, I don't think people know sarcasm listening to this show.
Everybody's talking about how smart he is.
Okay, so November 21st, it's been 2 weeks exactly since the Donald figured out that he lost the election. What do you think is really going on in his mind? Let's start off with him inviting the Republicans from Michigan over to the White House to discuss,
to see if they can,
what can they do? A little you know, what do you think about that? I mean, yeah, go ahead. What do you think is really happening?
You know, the Donald is just running the playbook that we all knew he was going to be doing this. If he lost the election, which we all, I think, were sort of
hoping,
reasonably sure.
Praying.
I think at some point it became like, okay.
Because of COVID, but yes, I'll take it.
Yeah, there's that for sure. And we should get back to the fact that 71 million people still voted for it.
Oh, I will talk about that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You know, at no point leading up to the election, when he was asked, would he accept the results if he were to lose? Would he concede? And effectively he said, no, I won't. You know, he said, yes, I will if I win.
Right.
Or I'll accept the results if I win.
If I win. Let's see what happens.
Well, yeah, basically. It's like, no, I'm going to win this election one way or the other. In his mind, that's how this works.
Yes. But see, that's why I call him an authoritarian. I mean, that isn't like this is all part of a political game. And that's the scary part. You just said to me, we should talk about him getting 71 million votes. That's the frightening part.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend my weekends, just so people know, and this is Danny T, by the way, the host of Collateral Banter, reading about democracy from like these experts from like Stanford, all of these very stable geniuses.
Sure.
None of them write about the United States in this state because, I mean, the fact that 71 million people voted for Donald Trump should be a warning signal that somebody like him or smarter and more politically savvy will one day seize this country and will get the support of the people and will win and will crush the sort of democratic liberal resistance. And I make this argument, and I said this in previous podcasts more recently, but let's be honest with ourselves. He won 71 million votes. He improved on every single category of racial group, gender group, except white men, which still overwhelmingly vote Republican, but Biden did better. And that 5% of white men who swung towards Biden, even though Trump won white men, he still needed that 5% probably to carry a lot of those states. I haven't broken down all the numbers statistically. But it does worry me that somebody after 4 years living under COVID, knowing how bad it was, still fucked it up. He could still, suck up all the oxygen. People still love him. And the way he runs and the way he governs and the things he says, saying he was going to throw Hillary in jail. I've talked about political norms like 3 or 4 episodes ago. He just violates them blatantly all the time.
Right. Firing
inspector generals because they're, sniffing around, seeing like what type of corrupt shit is happening. And by the way, you want to look up how many times inspector generals are meant to write reports that say like what you're doing is against the rules, against the law, is corrupt, and they just fires them. And he has the authority. The scary part is he has the authority to do a lot of these things. And the part that pisses me off is that like Americans have rewarded this. Not only in his votes, yes, he lost. But Republicans didn't get punished for it. They've enabled and supported it and backed him for it. They got rewarded.
Right.
They won 5 seats more than they had. And so while they're not a majority, they're in striking distance in 2 years from taking back the House.
Yeah.
They are not losing the majority in the Senate. I think one of the 2 Senate seats in Georgia will go Republican. So they'll stay a minor majority in the Senate. And people thought the Democrats were going to win state houses all across the country, and they didn't.
Right.
Actually, the state houses, only one of them flipped, and it was New Hampshire, and it went from Democrat to Republican. So when you look at it all, as a Republican operative would look and say, okay, maybe Donald Trump's just too crazy for America right now, but Republicans weren't punished for what they did, the enabling, the supporting, the backing.
Right.
Donald Trump is great and doing all that and the hypocrisy of it, like Lindsey Graham first criticizing him that he's unstable, blah, blah, blah. And now
all of that.
All of that.
All of those things, all of the backtracking that's been done. I mean, let's stick with Lindsey Graham here. 4 years ago, it was outlandish to think that we could replace a justice on the Supreme Court with a presidential election coming, right? And that we needed to let the people decide who the next justice should be. And then 4 years later, when it suits them, all of a sudden, where is he? He's completely backtracked. Now he's behind it all. He's taken away. This is the thing that I don't understand, which makes me suspect that someone somewhere that Donald Trump has ties to has a bunch of shit on these people. I mean, it just defies any logic that these people, knowing that we're in the age, of modern technology, everything you do and say is recorded.
Right.
We can hear you say one thing, and within a minute, we can go back in an archive, pull up the thing that you said that was exactly opposite, and put it up, a minute later, we can say, okay, well, you say this now, but you said the exact opposite thing 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
4 minutes
You said 4 minutes, Donald Trump said this one thing about Republicans 10 years ago. Now all of a sudden, here he is, the champion of the Republicans. And the whole thing there, there's just something about it that it's so blatant. It's so like, and I don't understand. I don't understand why the 71 million people that would vote for Donald Trump don't understand that he loathes them. That he
might loathe them, but they love him. It's like a really bad relationship.
It's a toxic relationship.
It's a toxic relationship
it is the
of
very
like,
definition
I want to
of
blow you, and you really talk shit about me, but in front of my face, you're like,
but
I love
can't
you.
stop loving you.
Can't stop loving you.
Yeah.
But behind my back, you're like, who are these fucking morons?
Yeah, these dirtbags.
Yeah, and you know what? This all reminds me of, and if anybody listens to Collateral Banter, they always have to go through my Baudrillard episodes with my friend Jerry. There's this French postmodern theorist who was like initially a Marxist, like in the 60s. He leaves that shit and he just realizes that like technology does something to us psychologically where meaning itself is erased.
Yeah.
And honestly, everything you were talking about, kind of like, how can you say one thing and 4 minutes ago you say the exact opposite? And Donald Trump does that. Yeah. But it's like words don't have meaning in this society anymore. Like honor and being respectful and all that, none of that matters.
No.
It doesn't matter to the voters, and it definitely doesn't matter to the politicians who just want to get elected. So,
no.
So nothing matters.
Unless you actually walk up to them and talk to them one-on-one.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't even think it matters. Like you could probably spin it. You could probably be like, I hate all of you. They would clap. And then you'd be like, I want to throw all of you in camps. They would clap and laugh. And then at the same time goes, I'm just joking. It's by the way, so I'm reading a book on the whole Russia investigation. This is my bedtime reading.
Yeah.
By Jeffrey Toobin, jerk off Jeffrey. And
I don't know.
You don't know jerk off Jeffrey.
It's going to make a bad joke, though.
Oh, make it.
No, it's okay.
All right. I'm reading his book on the whole Russia investigation, and June or July 17th. He basically makes the joke, Russia, if you're listening, find Hillary Clinton's 30,000 emails. I'm sure our media will be happy that you found those emails. And here's the thing. According to the U.S. intelligence, that's exactly what Russia did that same day. Corresponding to, he said it at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. And in Russia, I don't know what time it was, 6, 7, 8 p.m., whatever. Is it the end of the workday? So,
for sure.
And they did. But again, if you believe that words and meaning don't have any value, he's just joking. He's just making stuff up.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you say? Anything is possible. Everything is
hiding
possible.
In plain sight.
It's like hiding in plain sight, but you're basically saying what you see is not what you actually see.
That reminds me also of the Proud Boys comment that he made during the debate, where was it unclear that he was speaking directly to a certain group of individuals that he has most certainly had some kind of contact with. Maybe not personally, but certainly through a third party,
sure,
whomever. He's courted this attention. All he wants is attention. That's all he's ever wanted. He just wants, that's the narcissist. That's the whole, malignant narcissism thing, where that's all he wants is attention, positive or negative.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
The negative fuels him to go on his,
rants.
Toilet bowl Twitter rants.
Yeah.
And then the positive is what we saw throughout his presidency, where he couldn't stop campaigning, quote unquote, for whoever. He was at rallies. That was just, it's like the old days, minus the media technology we have now. Back when that's the only way you got to people was to go out and talk to a group of people and live, and be there and feel that instant gratification of the adoration of those people and the applause for every dumb fucking thing that comes out of your mouth. And then the spontaneous chanting, all of those things that he just loves. That just feeds his ego, and that's what he's all about. Period.
So somebody put it to me this way, and I thought it was a really interesting comment. Donald Trump was a cultural figure that became a political figure, and Barack Obama was a political figure that became a cultural figure.
Like most
presidents do, but at least in the modern era, right? Yeah. Although George W. Bush hasn't really been able to break through in the cultural figure, maybe for conservatives, but Bill Clinton was a little bit, but definitely Obama,
Well, I was in college when Bill Clinton was elected, and I think that, I'm trying to remember the numbers here, but so that was what, 92 that
2000.
Clinton. So, yeah, that would have been, I think, my first time voting for a president, right?
Was it the saxophone?
It was the being on MTV.
Yeah.
It was the, reaching out and making yourself accessible that way, kind of breaking through sort of the boundaries of the, elite government officials who are, now you're a man of the people. Now you're
Arsenio Hall, yeah.
Yeah, right. All that.
Woo, 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 woo.
So, and then the saxophone that was just the icing on the cake. I mean, the guy plays a saxophone?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
He's got talent?
He's got talent.
He's human?
He's human. It's all about democratizing.
He's not just a stuffed shirt.
He's not just a stuffed shirt. No.
Yeah.
Sure, he went to Oxford, but,
Right. Yeah.
There is that. But see, that's what technology does to people. The democratizing effect is both good and bad. Mm-hmm. Like the democratizing effect is that the politicians appear more human.
Yeah.
But only on the surface.
Only on the surface. That's it. It's all an act.
When you peel back the layers, you see it's a lot more complicated.
Well, you know me. I make a lot of references to the Godfather movies.
Please.
Because I always do. Because, well, not always, but
because you're Italian.
And it's just one of those things. But it's the scene in part 2 where he's in his, Michael's in his office with Senator Geary and they're talking and, Geary's going to squeeze him and he points the cannon at him and, he's trying to intimidate Michael and he's shaking him down. He tells him straight up, I'm going to squeeze you, for however much money I can.
Yes.
Total scumbag, right? Michael calls him on his shit, says, you're going to get nothing. In fact, you're going to help me. And he laughs, and then he goes out. And then all of a sudden, the door opens up, and he goes out, and he's like, oh, ladies, I didn't know you were out here. He goes back to his public figure, smiling, gracious self, And it's like they just turn this shit on and off, It's an act. It's all just, how am I to the public, and then how am I really?
How am I really? Yes.
In my dealings, in my daily life, who am I beholden to?
Right.
Which brings me back to what I was saying. Like, I just can't fathom how we've watched people like Lindsey Graham again that flip-flop so blatantly, just so obviously saying one thing 1 minute and then saying the exact opposite thing later.
Well, see,
and we're okay with that. But his colleagues are okay with that. Like that is just.
I think part of that is people they don't care that someone's a hypocrite because the hypocrisy is trumped by the political meaning and value that you stand behind. So if you're a hypocrite but you're on our side, you're on our side. Yeah. I don't care if you're a hypocrite. It's like we'll still vote for you instead of Jamie Harrison, who ran against him in South Carolina. It's an interesting. I wanted to ask you this: what do you think about the whole division between the progressives and the moderates in the Democratic Party? Because interestingly, Clyburn, who literally changed American history, by supporting Joe Biden when nobody else would. His support literally changed South Carolina's votes, where Joe Biden needed to win. Otherwise, his campaign was finished, and he would have never been the nominee nor president. Now we see that the Democratic establishment have tried to come back and bring back power. They've taken back power, I should say. The Democratic Party is now going to assume the presidency. And it literally comes down to Clyburn, South Carolina. I think he's called the majority whip or something like that. I'm not really sure. He's the third or fourth most powerful congressman. And the interesting thing about that is that, like, he critiqued some of the progressives in his party. He talked about Black Lives Matter and saying, like, defunding the police hurt our candidates. That's what he said. Interesting. So that's just, and we don't need to talk about that, but almost in the sense of there's a real tension being growing in the party between the sort of like mainstream Democrats who win and the progressives who win, but only in certain sections of the country.
Yeah.
Only where it's really blue,
Sure.
maybe certain sections of New York City and Massachusetts. But there's a real fight going to happen there, and I don't know if that family's going to stick together.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's because, and I'm just going to say it, it's the two sides of the same coin thing.
Yeah.
Where, the progressives are really the ones that are kind of emerging as
the future.
People that want real change here.
Yeah.
They're not just, identifying themselves by a party or a color,
Sure.
but operating the same way.
Sure.
Doing the same things.
Yep.
Catering and pandering to
Same interests.
corporate interests
Yep.
and, lobbyists and all these people. I mean, it's
Right.
all the same thing.
Right.
And then the progressives and then, Bernie Sanders and those
Right.
folks who
Yeah,
are just like, we need to overturn
Yeah.
this whole table and just shake this whole system up,
My issue is, like, why does the progressives, why can't they win more votes? And at least
because
one
people
vote.
don't like change, Dan.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't like change.
Good point. I might need to be reminded
It's a
by that.
terrible, terrible flaw.
Do they not
in the
like
human,
change, or do
We
they
settle
not
into a comfort zone, and then we imagine the worst when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I know you've been doing things this way for a long time, and you feel pretty good being here, but if you can make this change, things would be better. Some people are quick to say, all right, I'll try that, because I want things to be better.
Sure.
But then I think most people are just like, you know what? I'm good enough right now. And I think that's the thing with the Republicans. Like, they care just enough about themselves that they'll put all other interests aside as long as they're doing okay. And that's something I noticed a lot when, looking at social media, a lot of the comments where somebody says, well, the Republicans are just looking out for corporate interests. They're just looking out for the 1%. They're just making the rich people richer. The tax cut benefit, the rich people and all this stuff. And then, and their reply will be, well, I'm not rich, but I'm doing okay. And okay, you are probably doing okay. But I mean, let's look at what's going on right now in this country. Let's look what the bigger picture is. And that's the problem. It's that myopic sort of, as long as I'm good and my family's good, that's all I care about.
Right.
That's all I'm here for. I'm not here to worry about strangers. I'm definitely not here to worry about people from another country who don't look like me, who don't talk like me.
Right.
But as long as I'm good, that's all that matters. And these people are telling me,
I need to change, and I don't want to change.
Yeah. Right. And I don't want to change.
Yeah. I mean, that's why the common wealth and the common good matter, And I guess that to some people who believe only in individuals, there's no such thing as the common good or the commonwealth. But historically, there has meant something about a public interest, the public good, the public will, the public desire. And I worry, because of the way social media and a lot of technologies are developing today, there's no such thing as a collective will. There's a lot of individual desires, but there needs to be some sort of common, vision, common.
We're able to connect with people who think like us so quickly now.
Yeah.
It's not like going out to the bars in the old days and meeting somebody and having a conversation and being like, oh yeah, we're great. We have stuff in common. It's not like whatever. Watching some talking head on a TV program and they're like, oh yeah, I think like that guy, that works. Now we're able to connect very quickly with very specific ideologies that we identify with, and that's really, I think, what's going on.
Right.
Especially with the Republicans, it's that they're connected to this ideology.
Right.
They're not worried about the public good. They're not worried
well, they
about.
don't believe in that.
They don't believe in that. Yeah. And then they just this guy's Donald Trump speaks to this ideology that they have.
Right.
And reinforces it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because he's a fucking idiot. I mean, he really is.
Bill Maher said that he was illiterate. If he's illiterate, he can't be president. By the way, I've read some of the books. There was one book called Anonymous that was written by a conservative Republican working in the Trump White House. And you know what he said about Donald Trump? He basically said he can't read anything that, is supposed to be 10 or 20 pages that you could go and put in a half a page, of notes and charts or in pictures.
Big bold type.
Big bold type. How does the presidency and the executive branch focus on really complex issues when all you give them are freaking, elementary school like pictures and look, this doesn't even make any sense. Right. And it's but there are ramifications for a pullout, which, okay, let's pull out. But just know when you do pull out, other groups gain.
Yeah.
Russia gains.
Yeah.
Afghanistan's your enemies in Afghanistan gain leverage and power because there are fewer of you and there are more of them, and they will take advantage, and your allies feel betrayed. You got to take all of those risks into consideration.
Right.
But how do you explain that in pictures to a person?
You don't, which is why, we haven't seen him do fuck all. Really. I mean, internationally, all he's done is, institute tariffs, which is writing down on a piece of paper that, our people are going to pay more for your shit, and then they're not going to want to buy it.
Yeah. And they'll buy American shit instead.
Yeah, maybe. But, in terms of international, all he's done is withdraw from every, environmental treaty, everything that he could pull us out of because they were bad deals. Because
are they? Because, here's the thing. If he had written the deals, would they be better? Because I think that's what he wants.
I don't know that he's capable. The guy's not all that good with deals. He says he is,
He's the deal
but that's
maker. Just
because he's just got enough. He went past that tipping point of influence where and this is, I will give it to him, this is the thing about him that I do admire, in that he does have he's very savvy in terms of marketing himself, branding. He's created this whole thing. He created his TV show that was an illusion. It was based on an illusion of him being a successful business guy, but people don't know any different.
Right.
I mean, you look at the list of things he's done and failed at; it's extensive versus what he's done and been successful at. And I still have yet to see,
but compared to most
what
people,
that would be. He made one good deal back in the 80s, I guess, when he built Trump Tower, and it was made the savvy thing about buying the air above this lot to create whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway. But, I just feel like people are just so easily fooled by the appearance of success.
Yeah. So does the illusion become reality?
So I don't know that it does. I don't ever think. I think Donald Trump's his own worst enemy ultimately because he can't shut his fucking mouth.
Yeah.
But he's president, so
at least for a couple more weeks.
Who's going to tell him to shut up?
Let me ask you this.
Somebody should have told him to shut up.
Long time ago. No one does. No one can.
No,
except maybe his kids. But even then, he wouldn't listen to them.
because he's that
personality disorder you're
absolute
talking
power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
that's
how.
yeah. He looked
So as we were leading up to the election, can I tell you, people were freaking out. Like people were talking about buying guns, and I'm not talking about right wingers. I'm talking about left wingers.
I've been shooting myself.
Yeah, people have been shooting, preparing for the conversation by certain people on Twitter was prepare for chaos and violence. There's one banker, I won't give their name, but I know them. So this one banker who is a local bank, this isn't a national bank, he's freaked out by the situation. He believes that, Trump is staging a coup, that he will succeed. He will then round up the Democrats and kill them, and then he will seize power, and he will crush the dissenters who supported Joe Biden. Like, he believes in, Donald Trump is on the verge of seizing control of the government. Now, I think, most people, I wouldn't even give this oxygen because it just sounds the crazy lunacy that we've always had in America. They've always existed. The difference is these sort of far out, wild comments, very popular on social media. They're the ones that gain traction.
Sure.
I could state that type of mentality would gain considerable clout on social media versus somebody saying, well, we'll see what happens. Maybe the Democrats will take over. Hopefully the Republicans will concede. Hopefully they'll pressure Donald Trump. That doesn't get it. If I made this whole podcast about conspiracy theories and alien abductions and copied Alex Jones and other people,
then I'd be a guest every week.
You would be, and we could make a killing off this show. We'd be rich.
Sensationalism, man. It's all
sensationalism.
It's, people used to have to read that shit. Now they just go on social media and it's all right there.
It's all right there.
They don't have to buy
not
a
even in
newspaper
words.
anymore.
Words require you to actually look.
Right, now
you sit there, and it's in pictures,
Yeah.
and people can even talk to you. It changes the relationship of communication.
Absolutely. It's more accessible. It's more immediate. And it gets right.
And
to
it's
the
also
dome.
interpretive just by the individual. That's so crazy to me. But I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, I thought about fleeing the country, but then I realized it's 6 weeks before the election. Living in Massachusetts means we're pretty damn close to the border in Canada.
Right.
If something like that were to happen, there would be millions of people fleeing the country all simultaneously. And, it's that didn't happen. It's been 2 weeks.
It's true.
Now it's true. Maybe when Donald Trump on December 14th, when he realizes the electors have voted for Joe Biden, he then has to make a choice. My opinion is he will not go to the inauguration. He will not concede. He will say it's been rigged against him. Mm-hmm. He will hold his own inauguration. He will then claim the presidency. He will try to push the Republicans to send delegates, and then he will claim that the delegates see, this is the brilliance of what he's doing is he is also going to say, look, the Republican delegates from Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia should have been for me. I would have won the presidency, and everything Joe Biden is doing is illegitimate. So it's illegitimate. I'm the real president. And then if, and this is a big if, it isn't a guarantee, if any of the courts in New York State come after him, he will continue the political fight. He will start talking about they're coming after me because it's a bunch of Democrats who hate me and they hate my politics. I did nothing wrong, blah, 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 blah. And he will question the rule of law and the judiciary and the court system itself. That's what is going on here. It's so radical. And yet, ready for this? Of those 73 million people, who voted for him, tens of millions, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million are going to start believing that the judiciary is out to get Donald Trump. He's the victim. It's a liberal conspiracy to destroy Donald Trump. And that concerns me. And I'm telling you right now, I don't give where these professors are coming from. I don't give a damn if they studied at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. They don't realize what's going on the ground. It's only a matter of time when they can't find the products and goods and services they need at the supermarket that they'll learn that, like, this whole technological revolution is literally creating societal chaos and upsetting the structural order of society. It's a freaking revolution. Not like it was in the past, but it's a revolution of hierarchy. Yeah. Power is being transferred to a bunch of people on all sides. It's not meant as political.
Small bunch.
Small bunch. But you know what? A small bunch who believe Donald Trump is being persecuted for his political beliefs means if one person on that jury is there and believes Donald Trump did nothing wrong, there's nothing you can do about it, and there won't be a double jeopardy. I mean, this is where you were talking about having to break up the country previously.
I didn't know you were going to bring that up.
Oh, you know it. This is collateral banter.
I thought that was a personal conversation.
This was personal conversation. But
I thought that was just going to be between you and me.
No, but we are getting to a point where Alabama is going to prosecute Joe Biden, and it won't matter what the actual court case will be. Like, they'll just make it up.
Yeah.
And from the right-wing side, it is, you're making it up against Trump, so we'll make it up against Joe Biden. And that's equal, and that's fair. And it's like, yeah, but yours is just completely fabricated. Nope, Hunter Biden is right. This is where you get it. Hunter Biden was secretly robbing people and giving money to daddy. And that's what we should charge him with giving money to daddy. The people don't see that that's what this is going to lead to. Yeah. This country is deeply unstable.
And if there isn't a Democratic majority in Congress, in the Senate, that can just say, whatever.
We're not going to investigate. Yeah, but then the Republicans are going to come out in 2 years and try to change that. Yeah. You know, but that's the scary part.
But here's something I feel like it's worth noting that at some point the rest of the world can just say, fuck you, America. We're done with your shit. We're done with you. We're dropping the dollar as the reserve standard. Yeah. We are going with the yen.
Yeah.
And you're on your own.
Oh my God. So that will
upend off.
That will upend everything.
And truthfully, I believe that there are a lot of people sitting on the sidelines right now just waiting, for this shit to get to the point where you no longer have to try to convince the rest of the world that this country is fucking crazy. Yeah. It's evident. Yeah. It's evident. Now, I spent some time out of this country a number of years ago. Yeah. And I got a firsthand sort of taste of like what people imagined life in America was like, just based on what we put out to the world. And it was wildly inaccurate. Yeah. And it was incredibly biased toward this whole idea that, we're the greatest country on the face of the earth. And, everybody lives like, Hollywood 90210. And we all have, limos and pools. And
you don't even have health insurance for most people.
We can't even take care of, we can't feed millions of people. We can't take care of homeless veterans. We can't take care of the people that went out and sacrificed everything to be, the ultimate American citizen and serve in our military. Yeah. So I just feel like that's the next, that's the phase that no one's talking about. It's like, why don't we all stop thinking like this is the reality or the only reality when there is a very real possibility here that we can be snubbed. Yeah. Because really, what are we doing right now that can't be done somewhere else? Right? Yeah. Now, a lot of people come to this country to do the things they want to do. Yeah. Right? but we put a message out there that we don't really want you if you're not from this country, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get the same opportunities.
Sure.
You're not going to be the best and brightest from whatever country you want to come from.
Yes.
You know, all these other countries that actually value education.
Yes.
And you know, want to make something of themselves.
Sure.
And not sit around and play fucking video games and, you know, expect
Americans
to get
love.
money and eat fast food and, you know, watch television and vote when the next voice candidate comes up for their election to be whatever. I think that's worth talking about.
Yeah.
That there is that very real possibility.
No, I'm terrified of it, and you know, I mean, Donald Trump is sort of just the catalyst for that sort of America's integration of the world. It's interesting, you know. I come from another country, and I grew up here most of my life. It's so interesting that, like, abroad, people seem to know a lot more about the United States and what's going on around the world. But when I come to the United States, and whenever I bring up a topic that involves foreigners or something going on in another country, nobody gives a shit in this country. Nobody gives two shits what goes on around the world. And it's sort of an idea of, if it's not happening in America or even in my backyard, I don't give a shit. And I think in today's world, America's going to have this very rude awakening where it's going to be like, no, actually what happens abroad fucking matters to you, you know? Because your borders don't protect you like they once did. You know, in wars in Europe, yeah, you could say it's across the Atlantic. Nothing. Don't worry about it. We're good. We're protected. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not. Right. You're not. Through the internet and through modern technology, I could be here in 3 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours it takes to get here on a plane.
Sure.
You know, and people don't get that there's a real technological revolution that has upended the sort of order that America wanted to instill and did instill for many, many decades after World War II.
Right. That
order is finished. And if that is correct...
It only took a couple of atomic bombs to get there.
Yes.
And that was it.
And we're not... The thing is, where the technology is going, it's like, we don't give a shit what Americans think. What is happening abroad will affect Americans. Like you said, the currency being changed or whatever, China's currency coming in. It's like that's bound to happen. And India might also get their currency in as a major foreign currency exchange. This world will probably come multilateral, you know, meaning there's going to be many rich countries vying for power, maybe competing with each other. India and China
or maybe uniting.
Like
maybe unifying.
Against America to take them down.
I mean, when it comes down to it, you and I both know there are major grudges against this country, against the policies of our government, which fueled a lot of hatred. Still to this day, fuels a lot of hatred toward this country, and you know, and we've been led to believe by the media that you know it's because you know they're just savages who you know they don't know anything, and you know, but fail to really just educate, you know, and that's not their job. It's our job to actually understand what the reality is there, you know. But I don't discount any reality that would not include America or would, you know, not result in the unification of the world against America. There's a lunatic running our country right now, right? At least for the next however many days.
6 weeks.
But like you said, the next lunatic is right around the corner.
Yep.
And Joe Biden's already been more or less set up to fail unless we get the majority in the Senate.
Yeah, and even then,
because you know, the long game that was set up by the Republicans when they threw McCain under the bus.
Yep. Twice,
you know, and through that presidency.
Yeah.
Like, because there was just a bigger plan.
Yeah.
Which was, you know what? Let the Democratic black guy become president.
Can
I
say something about McCain really quick? He said something, and I wonder if you think any politician today would say this to their own supporters. There's a famous story of a woman who said, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for Barack Obama. You know, he's like a Muslim." And blah, blah. And he goes, "No, ma'am, no, ma'am." And he goes and takes the mic
Took the mic away from her. Yes, I know that story.
And said, "No." And he goes, "No, he's an American. He's a good American," is I think what he said, and who I have strong disagreements with. But he was willing to challenge the fantasies that people had. I don't have to agree with John McCain on policy to figure out that he had the courage to stand up, to take the high road when somebody was going the low road. And he could have easily just stood there and been like, "Okay, that's what you believe. I don't agree." Right. He was willing to actually directly challenge that. Americans now are noticing like, oh, we should have respected and appreciated that. But now that cookie's gone. That's the frightening part for me. You know, it's like you don't have politicians like that. No. Now you have politicians, and where does it end? See, that's where does it end? Because in the previous histories, it either ends through violence, and that's how normally this gets settled.
Yeah.
And that creeps me out.
Well, you know, you look at John McCain, you look at a guy who experienced violence, like real violence, war.
Tortured.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, that whole generation of government officials and presidents who were tested by war in a real way, not just
directly.
You know, they were involved, you know, either by saving the world from fascism, like Eisenhower did, or, you know,
communist dictatorships. And, you know, I mean, look, we could debate that. There's a lot there.
For sure. But in terms of the people that have gone out, you know, and ultimately made that sacrifice, who are willing to do that, you know, and not get sidelined with bone spurs or just, you know, daddy bought you out or you were in college or whatever. Like,
or to be questioned that John McCain was a war hero because he got captured. And I like people who weren't captured.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Which
absurd.
You know, honestly,
that's something a dumb person would say.
Yes. And just in case people are listening abroad, that is what Donald Trump said early on before he won the nomination of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of his first crises of his campaign. John McCain was still around at that point.
Yes.
And heard him say that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's saying he was, you know, it's just like, how stupid do you have to be? But you know what it says? That the Know Nothing Party that we've had a history of, it was actually called, I think, the Progress Party or the American Party. Forget which one. But these guys have been around. And this anti-intellectualism in this country, I know it wants to take over and lead.
Because, I don't think anyway, there's no secret in that, you know, we look at education as like an elitist thing. Like to be educated, to be truly educated is something that only the elite people do. Yes. You know, like you're smart, you read books, like unlike most other countries that highly value education. And I'm just going to go back to my experience growing up where, and I think this kind of carries across, there's a sort of a through line here with the value. Like we looked at the smart people, the people who were committed to education, to being educated as the nerds, and we valued and sort of, you know, glorified the cool guys who were generally idiots, right?
Absolutely.
The dumb jocks, the Fonzies, the fucking guys who, you know, they're just good looking and they had charisma and they're smart enough. They had street smarts and they're very quick-witted.
Surfboards.
And whatever. And whatever. But, you know.
Smoked a lot of dope.
Whatever.
Let's be honest.
Whatever, yeah.
This was like in every high school across the country. Yeah. We mass-produced this shit.
But, I mean, that's the thing is like we looked at the people who were serious about their education, and I didn't personally, but I know that I was also on a different track. Sure. Like but that was very apparent. Like we glorify the cool guys, we do. Right? The cool thing, that whole egocentric kind of way of being, which has nothing to do with being intelligent or I mean, there is an intelligence there.
Yeah,
there's certainly a certain intelligence there. There's a very surface, kind of superficial quick-wittedness and whatever the charismatic thing is a product of, or confidence, and a lot of confident people are also really dumb. It doesn't take much to be confident.
No.
Being competent is a whole other thing.
Yes.
And I guess you can't have one without the other.
Yes.
Really, I just know that I grew up in a world where we didn't value education.
Sure.
I just saw it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's our biggest downfall.
Yes.
And when you look at our educational systems and you look at the quality of education that we've been having to deal with. I mean, you talk to any teacher about what their experience teaching has been like for the last 20 years, right? Certainly since the No Child Left Behind thing came around. And now, we just need to pass tests. We just need to know enough to pass this test to make us look like we're smart so that we can get this funding from the government, because
and prove that
this
school is a turnaround school and all of these kids are getting educated.
Yeah.
When they're not.
They're not.
The truth is, to build a real education system, everybody knows the answer. If you start really paying teachers $75,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, $100,000 a year, the number of people you would get who are highly driven, motivated, would start changing. Instead, this country, and it's just because of the numbers, man. People have some inherent greed. If I was living in rural West Virginia and you offered me a $70,000 a year job, okay, because you had certain criteria. I had a master's degree. So I'm talking about maybe teachers with already a master's degree.
Right, which I think is required for most.
Within 5 years. You can actually go teach with a bachelor's degree, but you need, in your first 5 years, at least in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But this country gets whatever it invests in, and it doesn't invest in this topic. And I think it's this deeply it goes back to the founding, and really it goes back to maybe the Jeffersonian wing of things, which believed in sort of like anti-elites who are like the Northerners and the banking system and these economists who ran the federal, essentially what the first bank. So it was like the banking elite. Like there's a very deep dislike of elites. And you know what the interesting thing is? Everything you're describing to me is exactly, as an immigrant to this country, as a young kid, I was 4, okay? But exactly what you're saying is exactly what I experienced.
Yeah.
I did in Massachusetts. I don't know I'm guessing you were in Massachusetts too.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere around this country.
Sure.
And here's the difference.
I mean, every movie growing up when I was growing up, that was all about that.
And
it was just being a rich idiot was cool, and being a smart kid was not
a nerdy.
Cool.
Yeah,
and
you smelled, and nobody wanted to sleep you. Yes, nobody wanted to sleep with you. You'd be alone.
Yes,
and you were a nerd, and nobody liked you.
Right.
And it's been just beaten into this culture. And interestingly, though, the elites of this country, and I mean though, like, not just the rich 1% whose parents are full of money, but also like their kids and certain sections like Silicon Valley and even the public schools there. They're the future elite. So let's just take, for example, the richest 9% of this country, from the richest 9% of households. Mm-hmm. And they're always striving for, the APs, and they want the SAT 2s, and they want the most advanced place courses. That stuff exists.
Sure.
It's real. It exists. But it already comes from that money. It comes from their parents just beating it into them from a very young age that this is what you do, this is who you are, and this is what you will be doing. And honestly, I think today's political sort of systems reinforce the power of the other 90% who don't believe in this stuff. Who think like, who cares about education? Across the board, regardless of who your parents are, culture, race, everything. Mm-hmm. Why do you care about education? What is that going to lead to you?
Yeah. Right.
And in today's world, we have almost no economy. A lot of the jobs have disappeared. A lot of the good paying jobs got shipped out to other, companies shipped them out abroad.
Sure.
There's a real downward pressure on wages and salaries. There's almost going to come a point where that elite 10%, some of them on the bottom rung of that, are going to start saying this whole system is rigged against us. And if it's rigged against us, why am I, always going after the education? It's like a mountain that you're trying to climb.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for a lot of Americans, they don't have parents who, A, have the time or the desire to instill that heavy education. And I will say this, capitalism does reward that, and you do see it in a lot of those East Asian families.
Sure.
But like sometimes to a detriment. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
take it overboard where all they got to do is go to school. And you do have to find a balance.
Right.
But I think like they're one extreme and too many Americans are the other extreme. But go ahead. Last point
that's
here. And they
that's
beat it
exactly
into kids.
right.
And they
I
beat
think-
it in kids in depression, man. South Koreans and Japanese, like the suicide rate among young people who aren't like necessarily academically smart is really high. So
Yeah.
this isn't a healthy like to go the other
No,
route as
absolutely
well.
not. And then, you look at so many, I mean, I think if you were looking at a bio of any like Korean or Asian, person that's successful doing something like working in the restaurant business, for instance, like I'm a big fan of, some of these cooking shows like Top Chef and stuff. And occasionally they've gotten, contestants that were in who are like big time accomplished chefs. It's Top Chef. It's not average chef.
Yeah.
These people are accomplished and they've already established themselves. That's the only reason they're there is because they've already got a name wherever they are. They've already started a restaurant or two or whatever, wherever they are. Now they're just trying to be the best in the country or the top chef, period, right? But they all say the same thing. Like when I told my mother, father, whatever, that I wanted to be a chef, like they wanted nothing to do with me.
Right.
And I'm here to prove that
Wrong.
this is also a value.
Oh, that's where, yeah.
It's like it's a very similar
Yeah.
trope.
Exactly.
That. And then,
And I think
but,
parents
I
need to
mean,
back off. I mean, I give parents some credit to at least backing off and not having to force your values. But you still need to value, like, hey, if this is the education in your profession, you have to devote to it. You have to be able to dedicate for it and really, throw your life at it because this has some special value to you.
Right.
It can't be something that you just half-ass. And too many of us half-ass, but too many of us don't even know what our goal is.
Right.
Professionally.
It's true.
You just kind of take any old office job and just do it. And,
Sure.
and live the family and just say, hey, this is it.
I'm just doing for me and mine.
Yeah.
And, whatever that takes.
There's
And
the
that's-
American
and that's
depression.
fine.
Yeah.
If that leads to happiness ultimately,
That's fine.
that's fine.
I agree. All right. Mastro, I don't know how we ended up on that topic.
Well, we go everywhere.
We go everywhere and
An hour
anywhere.
and 4
You know
minutes
what? The
later.
next time you come on, let's tease this. The next time you come on, you're going to have a piece of paper with you.
Yeah.
And you're going to ask me
I'm
interview
interviewing
questions.
you.
You're interviewing me.
Yes.
And
we're gonna
that should be
reverse this.
wild. We're going to reverse the order. I'm not going to ask you questions. You got to interview me.
Okay.
Okay? And then that way people will know who the hell Danny T is on Collateral
Who is Danny
Banter.
T?
I don't know. We don't know. Nobody really knows.
That's true.
But the
do.
aliens do.
The
The
aliens
aliens do.
also do.
They've probed me. I'm actually one of
God.
them. I'm actually
Don't
from
say
planet probed.
Oh God.
Oh, Mastro.
Anyway, all right, man.
Yeah, thanks,
This
man.
is fun.
Hey,
The 80.
episode 80 of Collateral Banter, episode 80, Collateral Banter. Thank you for listening. All of our episodes are on archive.org. Music is from the Free Music Archives. Check that out if you haven't. Thank you for listening. It's Collateral Banter here with your host, Danny T and Mastro. Thank you for coming on, Mastro.
My pleasure.